All right, welcome to the next episode of Every Citizen Armed. I guess this would make it episode 10. Today we're joined by Will Bedell. He's a great young man who I met probably 10, 12 years ago when he worked for one of my customers, actually. We've had a great conversation, talked a lot about how he got into firearms. He kind of grew up with the guns, but at the same time, that was more of a tool for him back then, which you'll hear in the talk. And then really, he's only been shooting his handguns and then competitively in training for the last 4 years. And to see the steps he's taken, I think are very impressive. Talks about where he's training, who's working with him. I think you're really going to enjoy this episode. We had a lot of fun. I enjoyed talking to Will, and I really think there's a lot of education to be picked up in there also. So thank you much, and here we go.
Every Citizen Armed ensures that every American patriot is prepped with knowledge, perspective, and firepower.
He counted on America to be passive. He counted wrong.
Ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country.
All right, today we're sitting here with Will Bedell. Bedell Firearms basically is part of what you're doing now?
Yes.
Well, let's do this. Why don't we get started? Tell me about where you're from, what you've done, you're growing up and so forth, kind of who you are.
So I grew up on the central coast of California in a little town called San Miguel. Next biggest town was Paso Robles. Actually, that's where you and I met about 10 years ago at a previous life and a previous job. Grew up on a cattle ranch, horse ranch, working on cattle ranch. So grew up as far as Second Amendment, and with firearms, we were very the farmer, hunter, ranch. We had bolt-action rifles. I got my first gun when I was 12. My dad bought me a Remington 870 shotgun for bird hunting. So we got to go out and we'd go dove hunting and shoot clay pigeons. Then when I turned 16, I got a deer rifle and took several deer out of the Central Coast and various ranches I had access to. And growing up, I was very, very along those lines of a traditional hunter. I didn't know what an AR-15 was. I wasn't involved in the firearms advocacy per se.
It was just a way of life for you basically back then. It wasn't really thinking about Second Amendment.
Yeah. We had 22 rifles. We had the squirrels that were a bane of everyone's existence when you live in the country. So,
a lot of folks don't think about what those squirrels really do. They look cute running around and we all want to be.
Yeah, until you grow hay and they eat half your hay crop and there goes your livelihood for your animals for the winter.
Or they get a squirrel hole out there and then your horse steps in it. And Lord knows that's...
Or we step in it.
Or you step in it, exactly.
I've twisted many an ankle in squirrel and gopher holes. We got to the point where my brother, sister, and I, my dad gave us 50 cents a tail to go out and shoot gophers and squirrels. So that was making up on summertime. Go out if you were bored. You went out in the back part of the property and shot squirrels, and we'd have family and friends come over maybe twice, 3 times a year to have a shooting party. But really limited in the activity that I was doing when it comes to the firearms community. Once I got more into high school, we would attend the NRA dinner in Paso Robles with my dad's boss. He bought a table, graciously would let us go, and I rapidly figured out that I did not have enough money to attend one of those things, but it was nice to be there all the same.
Those are so much fun, though.
They are a lot of fun.
And they hand out a lot of guns.
They do hand out a lot of guns.
Yeah, which is great. I actually attended an event up in Afton, Wyoming earlier in the year. And what I was really impressed with there was it was actually at a stock dog show. And they did the same type of thing. They were auctioning off 22s. And 5 of the 6 guns were 22s, and the other one was a really nice hunting rifle that actually went for probably close to $10,000. But the other 5, each one when they were bought in the auction, the fellow who bought it donated it back to the junior stock dog kids.
Oh, okay.
So the top 5 kids actually didn't know that going in, but because the guys bought them at the auction, they actually donated them right back and gave them to the top 5. And I thought that was actually a really good sign of what's happening in our community.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are a lot of fun. But really, that 22 back then, that was just a tool for you.
It was just a tool. It was entertainment and a tool all in the same, depending upon where we were going. I mean, we did target shooting. We had a little set of silhouette targets. My dad had a Ruger Mark IV target pistol, so that's what I learned how to shoot target pistol on. And
That's kind of cool.
it's a great little gun. It's got the custom grips, and it's a bull barrel, so the thing weighs about 7 pounds. But it shoots flat as can be. And it's when I have students out at the range that I work with, I have a 22 that I bring out with me, and 22 is the best learning caliber.
Yeah.
Because you can get all your fundamentals down. It's still going to go bang, but it'll go pop rather than bang.
Right.
And it's easier to introduce, especially ladies and older folks that are, given our current climate, are having struggles with, they want to start proactively being part of the solution or protecting themselves. That's something that introduce them. Hey, this is what you're going to start with. And we have a joke at the range that, the old guys will come out and they say, well, 22 is not a viable self-defense caliber. And, well, that's great, but how about you go stand down range and we'll shoot it at you, and you tell me how long you want to do it. No one's taken us up on that offer yet.
I would not have. And I hear that a lot. People say, oh, you shouldn't carry a 9mm because that's really not has enough stopping power. Everything has enough stopping power if you fire it properly.
Yeah, shot placement is definitely the name of the game, especially stopping power. I personally have a little bit of an issue with the term stopping power.
Right.
It's a lot like assault rifle. It's a term that if you're not in the know per se, or if you're not necessarily as well versed in firearms, it's a buzzword that sounds good, but once you get to know a little bit more, it's like stopping power is not a quantifiable data point.
Yeah, there's no measure in that one.
Yeah.
Exactly. I'm not fond of that necessarily saying so. So over there, we said you're 12, 16, going into high school. You're still in San Miguel, outside of Paso Robles. I said that's a tool for you. When did you move from there? Now you're currently in Exeter.
Currently, I live between Lindsay and Strathmore.
Okay.
So a little bit south of Exeter. I work in Exeter currently.
Okay, gotcha.
I moved over in 2017. Enrolling my full-time career when I'm not out playing around on the range is I'm a field service technician for a produce packing equipment manufacturer.
Okay, so there's a lot there.
Yeah. So fancy word is if you buy fries at McDonald's, or one of the big customers that we service where they sell their potatoes is Five Guys and In-N-Out, chances are, especially up in the Idaho area, you've gotten those potatoes have touched our equipment at some point to be sorted and sized for the end customer.
Well, you're everybody's best friend then. If you're making sure there's fries at McDonald's and In-N-Out and Five Guys, I think you're definitely everybody's best friend there.
Yeah, so I relocated from the Central Coast to come to school in College of Sequoias at Visalia, actually at the Tulare campus. They had a very good program in industrial maintenance that I enrolled in and passed, year-long program. And then I got the gracious opportunity to go to work for Leprino Foods on a work study program where we worked 2 days a week and then went to school for 4 days a week to learn industrial automation. So my formal training is industrial automation and industrial maintenance, but now I'm a field service technician.
Hey, it seems like you travel a lot.
I do. It's a little streaky. There's certain times a year that is real busy. Right now, most of our customers that we're trying to go visit, they're all gearing up for Thanksgiving, Christmas. So we're going to be on a little bit of a lull. And then after the first year, we're going to get right after it. I've got a trip to Michigan, a trip to Canada, back out to North Carolina, down to Florida. So
You're going to get your miles in.
you're going to get the miles
You're
in.
going to earn some points.
Yeah.
So, and that's where it really interested me a lot when we were talking. Like I said, we've met 10, 12 years ago, back we were both quite a bit younger than we are now. But I just thought of you as a great young kid that worked at Farm Supply. And, I had one of my good customers, and I really was impressed with what you did there. And they actually spoke really highly of you, when I had my meetings with the leadership. So, and then I see you move over to the Central Valley. Well, how long ago did you really start getting into shooting other than a tool?
So it's a little bit of cliche at this point, but COVID is really the trigger point that got me into firearms. The realization that, hey, you know what, you call 911, they may not be there, or they may be just taking a report over the phone, or, I was living in Lemoore at the time, and we've always had the gun safe in mom and dad's room that you could go in, get whatever you needed to do to take care of business, and I didn't have that anymore. So First step was buying a shotgun that I could keep in my place, locked safely when I wasn't in a suspected time of needing it.
That's a key point right there. You had it locked safely.
Yeah.
And that is one of the things we talk about a lot on here with pretty much everything that comes on is we're very much about gun ownership, but we're really about responsible gun ownership.
Yeah, the state of California is interesting with a lot of the laws they have on the books. I don't necessarily agree with quite a few of them, but I can understand the reasoning of what they're trying to do. I'm not of the opinion that should be mandated. If it's your choice, it's your choice. Just know that the responsibility, if you decide to do something unsafely, you're going to have to deal with the consequences, or there's the potential to deal with the consequences.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a reason there's warnings on the bottles and things that they shouldn't be. I mean, don't drink the bleach.
Yeah.
Because somebody did it.
Don't eat the Tide Pods.
Exactly. Yeah, you would
to
think.
reference back.
Yeah, another COVID thing, if I remember right. So that would have been 2020 when you really started shooting.
So it came down to my dad was the first one that got his concealed carry permit. We were actually shopping around to find an instructor here in the Valley for concealed carry class. I was living in Lemoore at the time, so pretty much the most popular option was King's Gun Center. And then my dad found Jesus Gallardo at Gallardo Firearms Training in Porterville and signed up for a class. And I emailed him and asked, hey, I know you're not an approved Kings County CCW instructor, but can I come take the class anyways, just to do the process, basically be a fly on the wall kind of deal. And so I did that, went with him in his garage. We've improved since then, but back then I think there was 40 people in his class all crammed into a 2-car garage.
Wow.
Yeah. If I remember right, I think it was July or October. So it was interesting. And then we went out and did the qualification, did the CCW. This was pre-SB2, so it was only 8 hours for initial. And my dad submitted his application, and I think his took, back then it was 6 months to the day he got approved. Mm-hmm. Jesus was offering at the end of his classes, was like, hey, we do the CCW, but we also do additional classes. If you want to learn more, here's the additional classes you can take. And so I just started, taking every class that I could afford, that I could get into. I think the next class I took was handgun accuracy. So we do a hardcore accuracy. It's a butt kicker for Jesus. It's a butt kicker for me. But you really do learn a lot of the deficiencies in just purely putting a round on target. To get into that class, we start at 7 yards, which is the standard for Tulare County. 50% accuracy, 7-yard target. We use steel targets to save on paper. Makes it a little easier. Plus, you have the audible feedback.
Sure.
But we get out to the end of class, you're hitting steel at 50-plus yards with a handgun.
Wow. That is impressive.
I think we've only had 2 or 3 people that couldn't do it. And they were shooting very small 38 special, and they were shooting some weird pistols that they were a challenge for us to do it.
Sure.
And they just didn't quite do it. But for the most part, everybody gets out and you can hit a steel target at 50-plus yards.
That's impressive.
So then taking additional classes, I started getting more into the rifle side, our carbine classes. And then I just started volunteering at the range, going to Jesus and saying, hey, I've got extra time. Do you need any help setting up? Do you need any help taking stuff down? And it took him a couple of times to believe that I was really for real, but then he started seeing that I had a passion to help out around the range, and I started helping more and more, and then he steered me towards actually getting my post instructor license, which is the Peace Officer Standards and Training, if I remember right. So I went down with a instructor that I had followed online for a long time, Mike Levy. His Instagram is Knockout Lights on Instagram and Facebook. And he did a civilian post instructor, CCW instructor course. We did it over 2 weekends. So that was kind of fun. It was good for me because then I could separate from my work time. I didn't have to take a week off of work, but went down there with, I think I was the only civilian in the class. Everybody was either ex-law enforcement or military.
Well, now where's he do this at? Down south?
Santa Paula.
Okay.
They're down in Santa Paula. So he works with another company called TACfire that they team together, and they have a range down in Santa Paula, and they do a lot of post-instructor training. He's a really, really knowledgeable instructor that I highly suggest if anybody is looking to go that route, that his company Mike Levy and TACFire are one of the only companies that are offering civilian post instructor training. And that is what is now required due to SB2 passing last year, is you have to be NRA CCW instructor, plus I think there's 3 more classes. I know one of them is self-defense in the home, and I can't remember the other 2 off the top of my head. But basically, SB2 got rid of 90% of our instructors in the state of California.
I have noticed that, yes.
They've relaxed those regulations slightly. They do now allow the NRA to be recertified, so you don't get an automatic pass. You have to reapply and do all the paperwork again, but they are starting to recognize the NRA instructor certificate. But even then, it's still a battle with the state of California to try and get new instructors approved, especially in certain counties.
I would imagine there's a few out there, man, that might have a little blue tinge to them.
Yeah. So I'm currently in the process of working through becoming a CCW instructor. I am still working up with the state. The state is fighting tooth and nail to try and deny everybody that they can. Once I have the state's approval, then I just have to submit a copy of my course syllabus, what I'm going to teach, how I'm going to be in compliance with SB2, and then the county will approve me, and then I can start putting my name on certificates, start offering classes, the 8 and 16-hour classes.
Prior to SB2, you were already certified. Were you training CCW prior to that?
I was not as the trainer. I was an assistant trainer, so my name wasn't going on the certificate, but I was there for basically range safety. So in this past year, we've really made an effort to get more staff certified. So we went from 2020, 21, even to 2022. The only instructors out at Gallardo Farms was Jesus Gallardo and Adolfo Gallardo, the brothers, and they were the only range safety, anybody that had the certificates to actually be teaching. We had a lot of people that had experience, but they weren't certified, so they've worked. We have now, I believe there's 6 or 8, Jesus will correct me.
Sure.
6 or 8 of us that are NRA range safety officer qualified. And then I actually was beginning of the year to become an NRA instructor to start the process on that paperwork just to cover both trails. So I'm actually a NRA range safety officer and NRA CCW concealed carry instructor, pistol.
So when I look at that, one of the things is, like I said, you really didn't start shooting until 2020. Now here we're 2024.
Yes.
And you're already, you've been instructing for a couple of years, or assisting.
Yeah.
Yeah, assisting for the last couple of years. But you're also doing some competitive shooting.
Yeah. So we've started, Jesus and Adolfo are competitive shooters from back in the day. I think they were shooting around 2010 to 2014. I mean, they've been shooting a long time. They got away from doing the competitive shooting. Life got in the way. They had jobs. Things happen.
Yeah.
But Jesus, in May of 2021, finally started making the jump to go back to Five Dogs here in Bakersfield and going out to their monthly IDPA matches. And he drugged me along. May 2021 was my first match. And so that's where I met Naomi Moss, who you previously had on here.
Yeah, great gal.
And between Jesus and her kind of got me started. Shout out to Red Hill Tactical. Quick brief sales pitch. Red Hill Tactical is Naomi's sponsor for all of her holsters, and that's where I have my holster for competition. They make great double-sided Kydex holsters that are IDPA legal. One of the things with IDPA is you cannot have a light on your gun, and you have to have a legal holster that does not drop below the belt line.
Yeah. Oh, I'm learning this thanks to Naomi Moss. I'll tell you a little side story on her too, is after she came on, and I knew I was not shooting well enough. So we went out, and my wife and I went out shooting with her. So now I'm learning about all of these holsters and extra guns and things and buying more ammunition because she's recruited my wife into shooting competitively with her.
We need more of them, especially ladies, because there's limited.
I'm all for it, but boy, it is definitely, you're going to spend a few bucks getting into it, but it's a great hobby. And
you are. I'm a proponent of IDPA over some of the other shooting sports because the barrier for entry is much lower, and IDPA is geared more towards everyday concealed carry. Over the past couple years, they've actually started relaxing the rules to where you can carry inside the waistband. What you everyday carry, you can now use in competitions. It used to be that there was no inside the waistband for safety reasons, but they're starting to realize, the whole purpose of IDPA is International Defensive Pistol Association, concealed carry, bring what you're going to use every day, and then you can just go straight into competition. The folks out at the Five Dogs Action Shooters, they're really, really great, especially with first-time shooters. They kind of gear more people towards the bug match, which is backup gun match, anything under, I think it's 3.4-inch barrels.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, that's coming up. I don't know when this is going out, but that's coming up. Third weekend of the month is a bug match.
Oh, third weekend of November?
Yep.
Okay. No, I believe my wife will be out at that one if I remember right.
Okay.
That's and that would be good for her.
I haven't gone to a bug match yet. The reason they gear more people towards the bug match is that you do not start from a holster. You start from low ready, and you do everything from a bag, or if you have a holster, you can run from a holster, but it's very low key, very easy to get introduced to, that you don't have to deal with drawing from a holster right away. My personal recommendation is the Steel Challenge. Steel Challenge is, they alternate every other month, is backup gun and Steel Challenge. Steel Challenge is outside of 2 of the stages. You stand in one place, you have an array of 5 targets, 4 regular targets and 1 stop plate, and they hit a timer. The timer goes beep, and you shoot those 4 targets, and then the final in the fastest order that you can. You shoot 5 times, so it is a little more ammo intensive, but there's very limited moving around. You're not going to be outclassed by, superstar marathon runner.
Right.
It's purely just accuracy, how fast you can get your sights aligned on the targets and move from target to target in the most accurate way you can.
I was really impressed when we went out there 2 weeks ago, I guess. And that was her first time of ever even walking into the idea of this and walking into a range. And the way everybody was just so receiving, they were so welcoming.
Yes.
Come on in, let's talk about it. You could do this, you could do that. I was very impressed with that. And you just don't see that in a lot of, it's a competition still. Yes,
the Five Dogs Action Shooters, it is a little nicer because they're not what they call a sanctioned match. It's a level I'm going to get it backwards. It's either level 1 or level 3. I forget what the lowest level in IDPA or USPSA is. They're really, you go out to those matches and you don't have the exact right equipment. Chances are you're going to find somebody who's going to let you run some of their equipment. They have extra stuff,
right?
Put you together, let you run. Everybody's out there to have a good time, and you're going to get training tips from somebody because everybody wants to help make you better. They obviously want to be the best, but there's no sense running over the little guy because everybody started there.
Sure.
I'm at the point now where I'm still middle of the pack. I've got obviously things to improve on myself, but it's to the point now where I'm seeing the next group of new people coming out, and it's like, oh, hey, this is what I've learned. This is how I've learned to do it. You can run this bit a little bit faster. You need to slow down here. That kind of instruction,
right,
which benefited me in the beginning.
And when you get into these, the competitions that you're doing now, are you doing it pretty regular?
I do it when I can, when I'm in town. I do have a lot of weekends where I'm out of town or on a job, but I do come in when I can. We haven't done it for a little while, but when we have generated interest for classes, we do an intro to IDPA class out at the range. We usually set up 4 or 5 stages, and we run everybody through how to run a stage, kind of how to plan a stage, because that's a big thing, is how are you actually going to go from point A to point B to point C? They'll tell you where you need to be, but how you get there is up to you. And that's where you listen to the old timers and you'll see the different perspectives on how we're going to get to A to B. A lot of what goes into like the more advanced shooters is the order in which they shoot and planning reloading your gun. So with me and a lot of the guys that I shoot with out there, we shoot what's called carry optics. We have red dots on our pistols. With IDPA, carry optics is limited to 10 rounds in your gun. So there's usually, I believe, I have the rules printed out, but I haven't read them in a little bit. I believe the minimum is 14 or 16 rounds in a stage. So you have to reload your gun at some point in the stage. And where you do that really gets down to, with the advanced shooters, it gets down to they're talking tenths of a second to
right,
we're reloading on the move here to here, or am I going to stay in place? I'm getting to the point where I'm starting to do that. It's still a little bit of timer goes off, plan goes out the window. Oh, okay, we're just gonna shoot this as best we can, and we're gonna deal with how it turns out. But
was it Mike Tyson that said everybody has a plan until you get punched in the face?
Everyone's got a plan until they get punched in the face. It's one of my favorite quotes.
Yeah, when that timer goes off, for some reason it just goes away, doesn't it?
Yeah. Even Naomi was talking yesterday. She came out to the IDPA match, and she was talking about at the USPSA match the week before. She had a stage where timer went off and she shot out of order, dropped a mag when she wasn't supposed to, and just went all the heck. I think she ended up with 20 points penalty, which she's usually like 4.
I remember that actually, because that's the one we were at. I remember her saying that.
Yeah. It's just one of those times I've had that. I posted a video on my social media because it's a learning opportunity for everyone, not just myself, but at a particular stage, I was planning on we had a limited start, so you have only a certain amount of rounds in the gun. I believe it was 6 rounds in the gun to begin with. And I was planning on my first group of targets to do a reload at the end of the targets before I moved to the next position. I get out to the targets, shoot the first target great, shoot the second target, and have a stoppage. I have a stovepipe malfunction. Okay. So the casing failed to eject out of my pistol. My mind went immediately, time for a mag change. And I completely disregarded the last 2 targets and advanced to the next series and did not reshoot them. So that was 5-second penalty for each target I did not engage. So that was 20 points right there. Plus I had another 10 or 12 points down on not being the most accurate. Right. And we have a patch that we're giving out called the catastrophic learning. It was a term we coined at one of our classes of catastrophic learning. You have a absolute stuff hit the fan, things are going wrong, but you're learning from it, learning opportunity. So I was the second one to be awarded that patch from Jesus. I have that on my bag to remind me, things can go wrong, but as long as you keep working through it, you're okay.
So then you've got into your competitive shooting. You're taking classes so you can be an instructor. You're helping out instructing up there. When you look at this, I mean, how many matches have you been through, would you say? Just a rough idea.
I think I'm up to, all told, between Steel Challenge and IDPA, I'm approaching 10. I believe it's either 8 or 10 I'm at now.
And when I think about that, going back to with my wife just starting to do this, and that first time you walked out to a match, what did that feel like as you're walking out and you're seeing everybody else? It's your first time.
Incredibly nerve-wracking. I can tell you if Jesus was not out there to be a little bit of a calming presence, I probably would have gotten back in my car and turned around, because it was, coming out as a first-timer and you're seeing all these guys, you're seeing the top shooters that are coming out and they have the custom guns and they've got their belts all set up. I mean, even before I met and knew Naomi, seeing Naomi rolling around in her custom fishing vest and jersey, seeing the kind of level of everything, it's like, okay, what's going to happen if I fall on my face here? What's going to happen if I'm not the best of what I'm doing? I mean, even to this day, to be totally honest with you, what happens to me all the time is not necessarily my concern while the stage is underway, while I'm actually shooting a stage, but in between stages is, just basic firearms handling, because there are rules. Trigger finger discipline. There are rules, the 180 degree to the bay rule that you will be disqualified for. Sweeping yourself or the range safety officer that's running the timer for you. If you point your gun at them, that's an automatic disqualification.
And I saw that actually.
Yeah. It's not necessarily the new shooters that you have to watch stuff for that. I mean, we have that with our CCW qualifications. It's never the new shooter. It's, I've been training for 30 years. I've been out to front sight. I've done this. I've done that. The other classic one was, well, don't worry about it. It's not loaded. And it's like,
now you just broke every rule right there.
Yeah.
There's actually a story you told us a while back about a range safety officer who was doing training for the sheriff's department. He thought he had his dummy gun in his holster, and he did not. And he actually pulled it out to demonstrate with the dummy gun and fired around through the walls heading out. Needless to say, he was not the range safety officer much longer after that. That happened. That's a rough rough way to go.
We have a couple of examples out at the range. We have a table that has a hole in it from one of the regulars that sent around when he wasn't supposed to. And then it's a bit of a mystery. We don't know how this happened, but the corrugated steel cover that we have over our shooting area, it has a hole in it that's roughly bullet shaped that just appeared one day. No one's copying knowledge of it, but it was just... There's a new skylight in the cover.
I put a perfect little 9mm right through there. Huh?
Oh no, it was like a 45.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it's a big round circle right in the top.
Yeah, that's and that just shows it can happen to everybody, and that really goes back to like we talk about. It's responsible gun ownership, but also responsible gun management.
Yeah,
and handling all the aspects of it. So.
Yeah.
Today's episode is brought to you by calconcealed.com. This is a website that's brought to you by Every Citizen Armed. You could go through, get your renewal course for your 8 hours, or you could go through and get your new CCW license, which is a 16-hour course. These are SB2 compliant through Every Citizen Armed, and you go on to calconcealed.com to get up to date. This will lead you over to where you can find instructors to do your range time, but also it's going to be very educational as you go through this course, as it has expanded to the 8-hour for renewal and the 16-hour for the new. There's going to be a lot of things on there that are going to give you information that you're really going to need as you move forward. So go to calconcealed.com. That's going to get you most of the update courses and the instructors in your area for your new CCW or your renewal. calconcealed.com. Thanks, guys. Now, you're going through, you're doing this. What really brought me to it was I saw your videos online, and you do a great job of putting your videos online.
Thank you.
On your Facebook. And I did notice on there it says you were an amateur photographer, and now that makes sense.
Yeah, I still play around with photography every once in a while. Most of my videos I post online. I've either had the great opportunity to have others that are taking videos of me. If it's not my GoPro, I run a GoPro, and most of my matches I have a little bit of a struggle at times to remember to turn the dang thing on. But
yeah,
whenever I can, it's good to get video. Granted, however much you may not want to see it, it's good to get video of you shooting. It's good to get a video from multiple angles as much as you can, because you'll see things that once you get experience, I mean, even without experience, you'll see things where you're maybe not necessarily thinking about it in the moment, but you see, hey, at that moment, I'm waiting too long on this target. I've shot my shot went good, and I'm trying to reconfirm, make sure my shot placement's good, instead of, hey, it felt good, sight was on target, my trigger press was great, it's time to move. We need to, when it comes to competitive shooting side, even in our classes, sight confirmation, trigger press is the number one thing we harp on. Trigger press, master grip, what we call it, and then sight alignment. Working with the red dot, because I went from iron sights to I did scope rifles, and that was pretty much my limit to it. And then I started. Jesus was the one that encouraged me, like, hey, red dots are the way of the future. It took me about 1.5 years of shooting to realize that I'm cross-eye dominant.
Oh, okay.
I'm also left-handed, and I shoot right-handed, so I am just setting myself up for failure. At every turn I get, I will still find sometimes when I'm shooting under duress, under a time, that I revert back and line up on my right eye with the dot and wonder why my shots are all going right. Well, my right eye, the simple test that Adolfo actually taught me was the thumb test. You put your thumb over a target, both eyes open, close one eye, close the other. Which one's lined up on target? Right. Oh, left eye's lined up on target. Okay, you're left eye dominant, goofball. Figure it out. You got to get it from there. It's a little bit of a challenge because everything that's on roster, all the handguns that are on roster in California are not very lefty friendly, at least not from the factory.
Yeah.
So that's where I've just forced myself to learn right-handed. I'm fortunate enough that I've had opportunities to purchase other handguns that I can now switch over to left hand. So now I'm working on actually becoming left hand, left eye dominant shooting. So the way I say it is I suck equally with both hands if I have one-handed shooting, but I'm almost ambidextrous when it comes to shooting pistols, at least.
I think that's pretty modest. I've watched your videos. I've seen you shoot. You're pretty damn good.
It's a little tough because we have some world-class expert shooters that come out and shoot with us, and but they're not dealing with left eye dominance, right hand shooting. They're not dealing with some of the stuff that I'm dealing with. The thing is, especially with Steel Challenge, is you're racing yourself. That's what you have to think about.
Yeah, do your own time.
Until things start clicking, you're essentially racing yourself. And even then, even the top shooters, not the name drop, but Adolfo comes out. He's a former USPSA state champion in the production division. He beat guys that were, I don't know how familiar you are with handguns, but he was shooting a Gen 3 Glock 17, and he was beating guys that were shooting CZs and staccatos and like $3,000 or $4,000, $5,000 race pistols, and he's running a Gen 3 Glock 17 with an SRO.
Yeah, so he's
he's
put himself in a little bit of a disadvantage, but really he didn't.
He didn't. Hopefully when you have Jesus on here, he'll talk a little bit about his background, his and Adolfo's background of they go to the range with one box of 59 mil rounds, and they would make that last 3 hours by dry firing, and and then they'd fire one round, confirm, and then they go back to dry firing. We say at the range, dry fire is free 99. Doesn't cost you anything to set up your gun, empty, clear into a safe area of your house, and just pull that gun out, get used to aligning sights on target, and making sure as you press that trigger that those sights don't move.
Now, do you teach that in your classes?
Yep.
Do you?
Yep.
Okay, because that's I don't think we hear enough about dry firing.
So I'm going to make another sales pitch.
Oh, no, jump up on a soapbox. That's why we're here.
There's a company, Mantis X.
I've heard of them, yeah.
They make some fantastic products. I started with a Mantis X first generation little dry fire unit that if you have a rail on your gun, it slides on just like putting a light on your gun. It'll fit all the Glocks. As long as you have a 1913 rail or some sort of rail under the barrel, it'll fit on there, connects to your phone via Bluetooth, and it'll track. It has a little accelerometer in there, so it tracks your trigger press and gives you a score. I started with that. I moved up and got a Mantis X10. Comparatively is night and day difference. The X is like driving a Honda Civic, and the X10 is like driving a Lamborghini.
Now, and for folks that are getting into this, we know it's not going to be cheap, but a rough idea, Mantis X10, what are you running?
It's $250.
What you're going to save in ammunition.
On the app, actually, with their latest update is they go back and they trace how many times you've pulled the trigger, and off of an average cost of a round, they give you how much money you save. So just with my 19 over the past couple years shooting with this Mantis X, I've saved myself almost $2,000 in ammo.
You paid yourself back on that one.
Yeah.
That's what we'll call it. Your return on investment was pretty good.
Yeah. The cool thing about the X10 is that you can live fire with it. So they do a recoil management. So it's not anything about your trigger press. It's how well, once that round goes off, are you handling that recoil and getting that gun back on target? They also do a holster draw. So it gives you a beep, and it times you from the time you put your hand on the grip to the time you get your sight on target. And it'll break down every part of your grip so you can see where your deficiencies are aligning on target. How fast am I getting physically actually responding to the start signal? How long am I actually wiggling around trying to figure out where my dot is? Because that's a common thing that a lot of people have struggles with, is finding that dot. We're gonna jump briefly over to another
sales pitch.
Another sales pitch.
I like a sales pitch. That's all right.
We have a guest instructor that has come. He came 3 years ago to the range and discovered that we have a gem of a range here up in Tulare County. And Kyle Manzano Tactical out of San Jose. And he comes and teaches I don't want to call it an intro class. It's more of a middle to advanced red dot class that is highly, highly recommended for anybody that is running a red dot, maybe just started in getting a red dot, or is looking to go that direction. He does several classes 2 or 3 times a year. He does a Friday night shoot. So if you're never gone out and tested your gear, you bought the flashy O-Light. I'm going to trash on O-Light because I can. The flashy O-Light, weapon light. and you come out and test and realize that every time you pull the trigger, the light blinks off and on, which is not an advantage.
No, I would think not.
It's not necessarily all of them, but we've had more struggles with Olight in particular than most other brands. Surefire is usually a good bet. My carry gun has a Surefire TLR7. Or I'm sorry, not Surefire, Streamlight TLR7. Surefire X300 is one of the more popular full-size handgun lights, although you can put them on a 19.
Okay.
They run great. Kyle runs Mod Light. He loves the Mod Light. I haven't had any chance to work with them, but it's a good class to come out if you've never had an opportunity to shoot in the dark. And if you don't have a weapon-mounted light, then we suggest bringing a handheld light.
Okay.
And you will realize how hard it is to actually manage having a handheld light and your pistol trying to track targets, or even on your rifle if you have a home defense gun that has a light. Well, depending upon what the application you're needing, that light, we go out to 75 yards is about as far as we can get, 80 yards, and you realize that light is just a hint at 80 yards.
Yeah, you're not going to do much good out there.
But there's also the lights that you can have that get out to 80 yards, but what happens when you turn them on a bright white wall in your house?
Yeah,
now you're blind.
Yeah, you're blind. You're not seeing anything.
So he does usually twice or 3 times a year. He comes out and does a weekend of classes, and I highly suggest this last time. I don't know if he'll do it again, but this last time he did a deal where if you bought all 3 classes, you basically got the full weekend of training for what one of his classes would have cost.
Oh, yeah, I'd be really curious next time he comes down.
He'll be back in March.
Oh, in March?
Yep. He's not very expensive. His classes, I mean, it's still money's money, but
absolutely.
Compared to some of the other instructors I've seen around, it's $300. I think it's $350 to come out and do an 8-hour class with him,
which really is not bad.
Which is really not bad compared to some of the other instructors you see around. Another instructor, actually, the reason that Kyle came to our range is we have an instructor, Rick Crawley from Achilles Heel Tactical. Shout out to Achilles Heel Tactical.
Absolutely.
He's coming out in February, and he's going to do a 2-day vehicle counter ambush tactics class.
Okay.
So we have vehicles that we get to shoot around, shoot through, shoot in, shoot on top of, shoot underneath. And if you've never thought about, what happens, you've seen the videos online of people stopping the car in front of you. What are you going to do? Shooting through a windshield is not something everybody gets a chance to do, and you really have to know that there's deflection, especially
it's
shooting.
Not like the movies.
It's not like the movies.
Not like the movies.
I love the Honda Civic that apparently has 6 inches of AR-500 steel that's stopping a .223 round. You come out to our range and realize those things are bullet magnets. They're concealment, not cover.
Yeah. You see that all the time in there, and you just go, and that door is really not going to stop the thing. I mean, I had a kid that used to work for me. He actually driving home from work one night, pulled up next to the wrong car, didn't realize, whatever happened, and the guys just opened fire on him and shot him in the leg right through the door. He wasn't doing anything. It was somebody else. And it darn near killed him. Yeah, it was... in everybody in their mind, that door is going to stop that bullet. It's not going to stop the bullet.
No, we do a demonstration actually in the beginning of class. I should rephrase because I have not been to Rick's classes as of yet.
Yeah.
But we have another instructor that has come down in the past. He has his own business up in the Bay Area that is keeping him rather busy. Dan Butler, Paladin Tactical. He has a series of classes called VCAT, Vehicle Counter Ambush Tactics classes, and I was able to take that from him. Dan and Rick both went to the same instructor to learn how to teach vehicle counter ambush tactics, so I'm excited for this upcoming in February to take Rick's class to kind of compare and contrast how each one of them approach it. But with Dan's class, one of the first parts of the day is we brought a car out and we shot .223, we shot .308, we shot 9mm, and we shot 12 gauge slugs through a car, and you got to see how far they went through, what kind of damage they did to the car, and realize that, the cop movie where you're sitting up against the side of the engine block, or sitting up alongside the door, that's not necessarily the best place to be. You want to be offset. You can use it as long as you understand the differences between cover and concealment.
Right. Yeah, that's a big difference there. So in that you're going through a lot of different classes still.
Yep.
And the whole idea down the road is you're going to be instructing all your own stuff.
Yeah. Jesus and I have talked about, I think the first class that I'm looking at providing is a intro to carbine, intro to rifle class.
Oh, that should be a great class.
That's a class that we've had several people ask for due to work constraints for everybody. Jesus did it at one time, but that's not the class that he gets the most draw from. And so he's now realizing he has more people that are driven towards becoming instructors using the range, that are safe, that are good instructors, that he's starting to branch out and allow some of us to do kind of more of our own thing under his umbrella. That's the idea going forward. So that's kind of the plan. And obviously doing the CCW when and if I can ever get the state of California to approve me.
That is very concerning. What I heard on the news yesterday, last couple of days, about calling the assembly back into session to try and make sure that we don't get all of our, get all the rights that we deserve. The way I would look at it.
Yeah. So.
Well, good. I think that's awesome for you to get into that. And what impresses me a lot is really when you look at this, you've only been shooting for 4 years. I mean, you've been shooting, but you've only been shooting like this for 4 years.
I went from maybe shooting 1,000 rounds in my life, probably 2,022 and 1,000 of other calibers to, I've had months where I've shot 3,000 rounds of 9mm just in training and during classes and whatnot. And that's not including, I think, for this past year, I'm coming up on almost 12,000 dry fire repetitions with the Mantis, and that's not even all the ones that I do. That's just the ones that are tracked. So
and I think that speaks volumes for folks to get out there and be comfortable, learn how to do, to shoot your gun, take care of your gun, and all the aspects that go along with that. I think that's really actually when I look at that, and I think there's so much intimidation for folks when I had a kid the other day, one of my neighbors said, I'd really like to shoot a gun, learn to shoot a gun. I want to get my CCW, but they have no idea where to start. They're scared to death thinking about it.
Yeah.
Like, no, you don't need to be scared. You don't need to be intimidated. Talk to the right people.
I don't know if you're aware of Coleon Noir. He's on Facebook and Instagram. He used to be the spokesperson for the NRA. He actually did the Joe Rogan podcast.
I saw him, yes.
Yeah, he talked about his friend taking him to the range, and he was scared to death that first round going off, shooting the round off in his hand. And he's like, there's a controlled explosion happening 3 feet away from my face. Oh, that's kind of fun. Let's do that again. And you will see the people that, it's still scary for them, but they're a slower process of getting to where they're not maybe necessarily seeing it as fun, but they're understanding, hey, when the time comes, I'm capable of taking care of business as best I can.
Yeah, I think that's what I really would like more people to understand. I had Donnie Youngblood on here a while back.
Yeah.
And he talked about that here. He's been the sheriff in Kern County for, I think, 18 years. And he made the comment, he said, you've got to understand that you might call 911 and we're still 10 minutes away.
Yeah.
Well, in 10 minutes, a lot can happen.
Or like my case where I grew up.
Yes.
The sheriff, I grew up in Monterey County. The sheriff's coming from Salinas. That's an hour and 45 minutes if there's someone available. Most often, there's not anybody available. So we had the sign in the front door. We don't dial 911 around here.
No.
You dial 411 to figure out where you're going to dig the hole. You're not calling 911.
Yeah,
but
811 is more appropriate. Exactly. Yeah. No, and that's it. And he just said it because you got to understand we can't do it. So you've got to learn to take care of yourself. And that is what we talk a lot about. And, with personal life, but also on here is learn to take care of yourself and get comfortable, but understand to do it responsibly.
Yes.
So I think that's great. Now, as you go through and you're going to start doing instructors, you'll do all this out at Gallardo's?
Yeah.
You'll just stay intact with that?
That's the primary. There's some other stuff potentially in the works down the road that may come about, may not. One of the things that we've discussed is both Gallardo and myself, our dealer, per se, is a gentleman by the name of Josh Short, Black Rifle Boys in Porterville. He is a home FFL. He actually just recently moved from the city of Porterville out into a little more rural area where he can kind of have a more secure, more open shop. And one of the things we've discussed going forward is potentially working with him on doing some range demo days, making arrangements to have other locations where we can have the people come out and have an opportunity to try before you buy.
I think that would be very beneficial. I mean, I've talked to you recently about I have to get my wife a new firearm. You're going to go spend $500, $600, $8,000.
Especially in California
Especially
with
in California.
the new tax. It's only going to get worse.
It is. And, we have our carry guns, and in that might not be the best gun for what we want to do. It works good for our carry.
Yep.
But at the same time, now I got to go spend another $600, $700, $800. So you want to be able to try that first.
That's one of our it's not an official selling point, but that's one of our points on our open range days is we usually have at least a couple of the quote unquote gun nuts, and I consider myself one of those that bring
gun enthusiasts
that bring out all their fun stuff that you can come out and you can have an opportunity to try just to see what you like. Jesus has got quite a little armory himself that you can have opportunities to try different things. That way, it's just the bane of all of our existence is the 38 special for the little old lady because that's what the gun store told them to buy. It's like I have a hard time shooting the Snebnose 38.
Oh yeah,
the little old lady. We can get you qualified, but you're not. They're going to have that doubt. They're going to have that fear. What we talked about earlier when it comes time to actually have to do something. So. That's where
I have one of those, and they are definitely hard to shoot. I can't imagine with the stress of that happens at that time to be able to hit your target with that little 5-shot 38. And it stays in my safe an awful lot. I very seldom pull it out, and that is just one of those. It was my first gun.
Yeah,
in my mind, it made sense.
Yes,
we actually, for my wife, we were looking at guns years ago, and she bought an LC 380.
Yep,
I thought it was fine. Now she hates it, hates the trigger pull, really. And she's like, I'll probably never shoot that gun again. We even converted it to an LC9, changed the barrel out, but it doesn't matter the trigger. You got to find something but there's other people that will love that gun. They like the trigger pull on it.
Yep.
It's just for her, finding that right trigger pull, finding that comfort zone. So I really like the idea of having it to where they could come out and shoot numerous guns. That's my buddy's wife across the street when we were talking about it. His wife wants to shoot. And I said, come out with us and I'll bring a variety.
Yep.
And you could shoot a few because I'd hate to see you buy the wrong one.
Yeah.
That way they could get out and shoot 4 or 5 or 6 different guns and understand what it feels like.
So my new recommendation, my mom, she was a school teacher, retired, and now she's still doing teaching on the side, and she teaches in California Hot Springs. And so, things go wrong out there, good luck.
Yeah, you're on your own.
Something goes sideways. So she was before SB2, she was qualified and was getting her CCW with my dad's Smith & Wesson Shield.
Okay.
But the Shield was a bit much. It's a 9mm. She doesn't have the strongest hands. 9mm, probably not the best option. We looked at a couple 22s. She really, she knew growing up. Still, it's a determined attacker. It's probably going to do more to piss him off than it's actually going to do to deter him. So Josh at Black Rifle Boys actually suggested looking at the Bursa Firestorm, 380 Firestorm, which is a Brazilian copy of James Bond's gun, the Walther PPK. And I will say I've got to shoot it, and I'm a Glock guy. I'm a 9mm guy. Sure. I love 9mm. I shoot it all the time. That Bursa Firestorm is it's fun to shoot. Yeah. It's light. It's got a great trigger on it. It's just a fun gun to go out and put some rounds down range.
I actually shot one last week before last, and that was the first time I ever shot one of them. And it was pretty cool.
Yeah.
My buddy has one, and he's like, try it. I'm like, that's pretty nice, actually. I like the way it fired. That's probably perfect for your mom.
Yep.
And it was not a lot of kick to it, of course.
No.
And it just made it. You could keep the.
It's a good target. Medium between having a 22 that has virtually no recoil and the 9mm that can be a little intimidating or a lot to handle if you're not up on it. Going back to kind of our story is I bought my first Glock 19 in 2020 from Morris Levin in Tulare, and before we actually started going out to Gallardo's, my dad and I were members at Rank and Field for a year.
Okay.
My dad had grown up, had pistols all his life, had shot pistols before. He actually, back in the day, had a Thompson Contender. I don't know if you know what that is.
I don't, but it sounds cool.
It's a firearm that you can change the calibers by swapping barrels on it. So you can have a 9mm, you can have a 45 long Colt, you can have a 223 barrel which is a little intimidating. A 223 round coming out of a 6-inch barrel on a handheld pistol it's a bit much, but
Okay, that would be pretty cool, though.
it's pretty cool. My mom still is mad at him to this day for trading it away, but
Oh, he traded it away.
he traded it away.
Oh,
And
no.
those things now, just the standard gun with a 9mm barrel are, $1,200 plus
yes.
if you can get a hold of them.
We've all got one of those stories, though. It's whether
Yeah,
it be
yeah.
the 69 Mustang that we got rid of. The
Oh, yeah.
same type of thing,
Yeah.
yes.
So my dad and I were out at Rankin Field, and Rankin Field is a nice place to go shoot, but they have range rules. No rapid fire, no working from a holster,
Okay.
all these, you're under RSO supervision, and they have to do it for reasons that,
Sure.
for their own insurance policies, and that's how they choose to do safety, which is fine. Not to make a point on Gallardo Farms, but we have the 4 standard firearm rules. We actually have, under certain conditions in certain classes, we have a 360-degree range.
Oh, wow.
So you're not shooting in one direction. You're shooting left, right, front, back, all the way around. Obviously, when we have a class, we have a group of people, we stay in a safe area, and we have designated hot zones where we can shoot, but you are shooting completely 360 degrees at given points when you're running a course of fire.
I need to get out there and see his course. That
Yeah.
would be very cool.
Yeah. So right now we don't have a whole lot on the books. We have Gateway Defense is coming in January, the 4th and 5th. They're doing a performance pistol class. And then Kyle Manzano is going to be coming out in March. He's going to be doing the 3-day classes. I think he's going to be doing the Friday night shoot, performance pistol, and a performance carbine class.
Yeah.
The cool thing about those instructors that come from out of town is they each have patch challenges. So they have a specific course of fire, a specific number of rounds to be shot, and a time limit on a target. And if you pass that specific amount of course, or that course of fire, you get a patch. Or in Rick Crawley's case, he has the man card.
Oh, is that right?
So he has a man card drill that is 25 yards, AC zone steel, so standard target steel silhouette. It is 1.5 seconds holster, 1 second from compress ready, rifle 1.5 seconds low ready, 1.5 seconds high ready, and then 1 round from your rifle transition pistol in 3 seconds, if I remember it. I don't remember the specifics. I should have brought them in with me to be sure. But if you pass all those, then you get what he does is he'll hand out your man card.
Yeah.
Then you do the first series of drills. He goes down one by one. And if you pass it, you get to retain your man card. If not, you have to hand your man card in. So it's kind of fun.
Oh, absolutely. That's the humiliation of handing it back in. That's definitely the motivator right there.
Yeah.
I think that's cool. I think the more we could get folks out to do this, and I think that was really the key, is getting folks comfortable. And I think you're a great story because it's such a short span, in my opinion, when you think about you're raised with it, but you weren't raised shooting like this. And now look how comfortable you are.
I wasn't even necessarily as much of a Second Amendment advocate as I am now. I've gotten a lot involved through Gallardo's, through beginning shooting more. I'm becoming more involved with the advocacy and the legal aspect of it. I'm a member of the Tulare Kings County CRPA, California Rifle and Pistol Association. For those that are listening, if you have bought a 365 or the Legion or any of the other handguns that have recently come on roster, that was a CRPA lawsuit that got the roster, or got the micro stamping overturned, that allowed those guns to now come on the roster with still, pardon my French, but neutered versions.
Yeah. Oh, it's podcast. You got to get to say whatever you want. Actually, Wesley Morris is part of that, if I remember right.
Yeah.
And it was because I was messaging with him the other day and looking for another gun for my wife, and he had the Legion out there, but it's a little heavy for her hands.
Yeah.
That was the only problem. And we did talk about that, how a lot of things are starting to come off that roster. Or getting added to the roster,
they're
basically.
getting added to
Hopefully
the roster.
the roster goes away.
That would be fantastic. I already have my list with Josh at Black Rifle Boys of what I want him to order for me once they get back. He teased me the other day. He had a SIG 320 Spectre Comp. I don't know if you've ever seen one of those,
I have not.
It is a fully set up production race pistol, and it weighs a ton, but it's compensated, slide cut, red dot ready.
Yeah.
But it is not on roster, so you have to find a private party to do transfer to get that at the moment.
And actually bringing up the private party, even though it's a private party in the state of California, we're still going to have to wait the 10 days.
Yes.
I wish, and more people need to understand that just because it's a private party transfer or sale, it doesn't bypass the laws. We still have all the strict laws.
As Josh likes to say, it still goes in California jail for the 10 days.
Exactly.
And then you get it back. I used to think it was because it took that amount of time to process the paperwork.
No.
It's not. The background check comes back almost immediately, depending upon the days. I've been 2021, right at the tail end of COVID, right when some of the craziness was going down. I was in his shop a couple of days, and he can log on to the California DOJ website and look at the number of applications in firearm sales.
Right.
And there was some days there was 20,000.
Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely. That's they often say Obama was the best thing in the world for the firearm business. So, well, I think we've talked for a little over an hour. I think we've got a great feel for what you've done and what you've been through, taking it to. I think you've done an amazing job. But I also think you're a great advocate for gun ownership and responsible gun ownership and being trained. I think doing the dry fire was a great comment. I really like that.
Dry fire free 99.
Absolutely. And that's a great way to do it.
There's ways you can, for me, I have struggles at time of doing the dry fire against the wall. I like having a little creativity. That's where the Mantis X fills that void a little bit. But there's a lot of great products, and there's even more coming on the market that are specifically geared towards dry fire, towards firearm manipulation, in a safe setting, just to get that practice where it's not costing you 30 cents or whatever 9mm is now, 50 cents every time you pull the trigger.
Right. So in that, you're up there now. What county is that? That's
Tulare County.
That's Tulare County. And you've got a great sheriff, Mike Bedell, up there who
excellent sheriff.
Is very supportive of the Second Amendment and CCWs. That's I think we're going to see a lot of him in the future coming. I know he was going to run for assembly, and he pulled back on that one a little bit.
Yep.
But I don't think that's the last we're going to see of Mike. I look forward to seeing where he's going.
It's a catch-22 in our case because we'd love to see him advance and be more involved in the politics, but we also don't want to lose him as our sheriff.
Well, I think in any position of leadership, and I've said this since I was young, and we had our businesses and anybody we brought in, you always should be training your replacement. So hopefully Mike's doing that, and I'm sure he is. Yeah. So because he's got a future in politics, and he could do some help up there.
Yeah.
So if folks want to get in touch with you, Gallardo Firearms. Is that you're starting your own?
Personally, if they want to get more information as far as range events and information on that side of things, Gallardo Firearms Training, Facebook, Instagram, and you can search on Google. They have the website where you can sign up for our CCW classes or sign up for any of our classes we have coming up. We usually are scheduling about a month in advance. I believe he has on his website a list of courses. If you find a course that you want to take, I think our minimum is like 6 or 8 people. If you get 6 or 8 people together, he'll put the class. I mean, even if we have 4, he'll call some of us enthusiasts and see if we want to come out and take part in the class. If you want any more information on equipment, recommendations, I can be reached at Bedell Firearms Training on Instagram and Bedell Firearms on Facebook.
Perfect. I think that's great. I think I said the more folks we get into this, you get more comfortable. Realistically, the safer we're all going to be, because it's not the folks that are buying them legally that are causing the trouble.
An armed society is a polite society.
It's amazing how that works.
Yes.
Well, very good. Well, I think that's a good stopping point right there.
Yeah.
Or as Mike Rowe likes to say, we're going to land the plane about right there.
Yeah.
He's always funny in the way he does his. I get a kick out of him. So, feel free to reach out to us again. And I plan on talking a little more as these courses come up and you guys are doing them up there.
I would definitely be good to touch base after first year, and we can get a little more information. And
absolutely. Well, thank you, buddy. I appreciate you taking the time today.
Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Best of all, a 5-star review is much appreciated.